Let's talk business. My name is Segun, and on today's episode of the program, I can assure you it's going to be a very exciting one because we have one of Africa's leading professor of economics in the house today. He's the founder of Center for Value and Leadership. Also, the founding professor of the Lagos Business School and also the pioneer university that came out of the Lagos Business School, the Pan-African University. He was one-time a special advisor to the president of Nigeria and also a one-time presidential candidate in one of the parties in a previous election in Nigeria. We have him today in the house to do justice to entrepreneurship, a tool in developing the third world countries, especially the African nations. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Professor Pat Utomi to the house. Prof, welcome, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for being on this episode of the program. We're highly delighted to have you.
Pleasure is all mine.
You've done so much on entrepreneurship, to grow entrepreneurship in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria, but in most of the developing nations of the world, especially the African continent. What, in your opinion, sir, is still hindering entrepreneurship in Nigeria?
Well, I think we have to be sensitive to the fact that entrepreneurship is a very simple thing. It's about creating something of value where none existed before. And what makes it happen is habit, a habit of trying to create value. That habit was invested in man from creation. Those of a Christian persuasion will know that in Genesis 2:15, the mandate was essentially given to man to go and become a co-creator with God, moving creation towards its perfection. And so, whereas God did not give us blue jeans, he gave us cotton, expecting man to move it from cotton to blue jeans. That is the very purpose of being, the essence of being. So, entrepreneurship should be natural to man. The problem that seems to affect entrepreneurship the most in our country come from culture, from values that we have. Well, first of all, there is a sagging culture of delayed gratification. That is, you sow today, you water, and then you harvest rich. We have an instant gratification culture. People want their reward immediately, now. Typical Jewish entrepreneur arriving in the US, sharing a flat with 3 or 4 brothers 50, 60, 100 years ago, would work from morning till night, toil, his shoes, literally you almost be seeing his feet from across the shoes, and one day a car knocks him down in the streets of New York and you find there's $3 million in his bank account. I think that there's too much of a rush to consume, to get instant gratification. It's affecting entrepreneurship significantly. There's the work ethic. Increasingly, the work ethic is a challenge for us. Popular parlance culture in, say, Yoruba-speaking Nigeria is something like, they say, but people
Work small, get big.
Chop big, plenty money. That is a fundamental cultural problem that venturing, entrepreneurship, really is an antithesis of. Then there is, of course, the challenge of institutions and entrepreneurship. Institutions support the emergence of entrepreneurs. There's a very important discussion of that in a most interesting book written several years ago by 2 professors at the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business, Raghuram Rajan and Luigi Zingales. And interestingly, the book has a fascinating title, Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists. And in that book, essentially, they explore the nexus between institutional arrangements and the evolution of entrepreneurship. Because you need strong institutional support. Let me give a simple example. The average American who is graduating from a top-rate business school can access capital just because of the quality of his certificate to start a business or to look for a business to to transform. They have all kinds of funds.
Available.
Yeah, it's something called a search fund. A search fund is just there for you to get money and search for a business that you can transform. You have a vulture fund, you know, for looking for a business, hovering, looking for a business that's about to die. You know, those of you who may have read James Hadley Chase in those days, the vulture is a patient bird hanging around waiting for, you know, you have all kinds of funds that people can access. And the truth of the matter, as Rajan and Zingales offer in this book, it just didn't happen. It happened through an activist judiciary, for example. A former U.S. Supreme Court judge, Charles Brandeis, gets a lot of credit for some of the institutional arrangements that make those kinds of things easy. So institutions are very important for entrepreneurship development. Unfortunately, we have very weak institutions. You set up a SMIDAN or this, and bureaucracies just kill everything, and all the problems we have in Nigeria common to those kinds of institutions. And the final analysis, entrepreneurs don't really get the kind of help they get. But bottom line is that is the entrepreneur. Yeah, institutions are very important, they help. But if we have the spirit of entrepreneurship, where people deny themselves to create, you will find that most businesses start with that loan from an uncle and a couple of friends getting together, and they start small. One of my favorite illustrations comes from Japanese experience. Two young men discharged from the Japanese Navy immediately after World War II. They were called Masaru Ibuka and Akio Morita. They were 25-year-olds. They'd just been discharged from the Navy. They didn't have any money. They looked around to gather money to start a business. They managed to put $500 together. But they had a passion, something driving them. What was that? They were always embarrassed when Japanese products were referred to as inferior, made in occupied Japan. And the passion of their life was how to change that, not how to make money. How can we, in our lifetime, be remembered as people who changed that perception of Japan? The company they founded is called Sony. The Sony looks like a huge corporation that fell from heaven. No, it's two young men with $500 whose burden was that their country, the products from their country were being laughed at. And they said, no. And that's how they built a big corporation, became very wealthy people. The key is the passion. The money comes later. If what drives you to be an entrepreneur is the money you will make a good entrepreneur. It's how you want to change the world from your hard work of that.
Thank you very much, sir. Some would say, having talked about all these problems in doing entrepreneurship in Nigeria, some would say the fear of the unknown also could be a factor, knowing that I have a paid job today, I don't want to go into what I'm not sure if there will be income tomorrow. Well, I wanted to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, fear of the unknown, true, but isn't it an English adage that says no venture, no gain,
success?
Yeah? The other point that needs to be made about that is that unknown can meet you anywhere. On that job, some nasty boss can fire you and you're out there. In fact, many of the successful entrepreneurs that we know may never have been entrepreneurs if some boss didn't fire them.
That's right.
So thank God for the boss that fired them. Having nothing else to do, they began to tinker, and here comes a great enterprise that has come from it. How we train people matters. If we train people in schools to understand risk, to deal with the challenge of, how you manage exposure to risk, people have more of a comfort, disposition in taking risks. I've never applied for a job in my life. I never have. From beginning, I set out to create something for myself. Talking to some young people, I was trying to put it in a nice way without sounding immodest. I said, the only jobs I've ever done in my life applied for me. I've never applied for a job. Everything else I just started trying to build, to create, to work at something. In the middle of one process, somebody will come and apply for me. I'll go and do something, come back, continue. You know.
Prof has told us some of the problems that are militating against entrepreneurship in Africa. When we come back, we would look at the solutions to some of this. Welcome back to Let's Talk Business. We still have a renowned professor of entrepreneurship, a renowned professor of economics in the house. Professor Pat Utomi has been telling us some of the problems that militate against entrepreneurship in Africa and indeed in third world countries. But now he'll be telling us what you need to do to solve these problems. Sir, you told us some of the problems now that militate against entrepreneurship in Africa. I know that your new book, The Business Angel as a Missionary, is more of an autograph, but also something you put together to be able to solve the problem of entrepreneurship in Africa. You told us earlier on that you never applied for a job, that the jobs that you worked, that you really did for other people was the ones they applied, they called you to come and do, and you built your business. And I know all of that is put in this book because I was looking at it. Tell us, from this book, what are the solutions that are available to the problems that are militating against entrepreneurship in Africa and indeed the third world developing countries?
Well, I think one of the solutions is changing curriculum of institutions like universities and co. to understand, first of all, not entrepreneurship as a course that you go and take. Entrepreneurship as part of every course of study. I'm glad in NUC is traveling down that track. Years ago, it wasn't like that. A few years ago, when a dear friend of mine, Professor Femi Bamiro, was Vice Chancellor at the University of Ibadan, they created this entrepreneurship program. I was appointed with a couple of other people to its board and all of that. And a serious discussion about how to infuse into curriculum of universities a perspective on things so that if you're studying chemistry, you can think of the knowledge you're gaining in chemistry in terms of how it will create value as a business. Not that you just go and study entrepreneurship, no. If you're studying history, what can you do with history? You know, people don't realize that with a good knowledge of history, you can build a phenomenal business. The history of families, and families can pay you to research their history, set up websites, families, all kinds of things that you can do. There's nothing that you study in university that you can't create value, make money from, and feed many people from. The orientation is what has put people on different tracks. There is also this the need for socialization in this regard. In our country, there's a very significant entitlement mentality. I have a university degree, so I'm entitled to a job. This is my rights in life. No, you have no right. If you create value, even on a job, you get rewarded for the value that you're creating. That's why we have many passengers in organizations. They really don't create any value. They sit around and they expect that they will be paid every month. So they're essentially easy loaders, free riders on the back of the other people who are doing work in the organization, and the organization should not tolerate such people. So that orientation is critical. Also very critical to this process of changing orientation so that people can create wealth is how governments and agencies that are supposed to improve the environment of business deal with potential entrepreneurs. I think that one of my favorite illustrations, again, goes back to Japan. There is a ministry, an agency of the Japanese government called the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI. Very famous ministry. Most of Japan's economic success in the world was driven by MITI. In fact, back in the 60s, you could hardly become Prime Minister of Japan if you had not served as minister at MITI. I got a chance in 1998 to spend some time at MITI. At MITI, you won't be able to tell where the private sector ends and the government begins because they work hand in glove for the advance of the Japanese economic interest. We find in our country that civil servants think that they own the world. They take public resources and they squander it, and they see private sector people as nuisance, people who are coming to get what belongs to them. I think somebody, in fact, told me a story, a very important person, so it's not a joke at all, about some civil servant who was looking to get bribe for up to 60% of the value of some, and was looking at him and saying, can you imagine, I put the thing in the budget. If I didn't put it in the budget, you won't get the business. So when you have that kind of mindset in the public service, you're going to have a major problem that you deal with. And I think, importantly, we also need mentors of young entrepreneurs. And mentors can then take on the role that I've taken on a good part of my life, which is the role of a business angel. So who is a business angel? A business angel is a person who has certain strengths, certain knowledge, know-how, know-why regarding business, and bring some material resource, some money maybe, but the greater value that the person brings is the experience, exposure to strategy, to networks, connections that can help a business advance. I found that in the course of my career, I've spent more time working with entrepreneurs who have achieved success. My main motivation is to get them to achieve success. And not quite a number of companies have come through that track. Nigeria, I can proudly say, got on the internet because of one of those kind of issues. I came to a class, I talked about how shameful it is that Benin and Togo were on the internet and Nigeria was not. And somebody in the class came to me afterwards and said, look, if two of us partner, we can make this happen. So was born a company called LinkServe. That's how Nigeria got on the internet. Dear friend of mine who was editor of the Vanguard back years ago left the position and was tinkering with things to do, and we got together and started talking about the idea of a daily business newspaper. People thought we were crazy, daily business won't work. That's how Business Day started. And I can go through several companies that have come through that kind of track. So you need mentors for entrepreneurs that can help them down that track.
What are the problems? You just talked about mentorship now. Fantastic. I know quite a lot of people who are your mentees, people who look up to you. Actually, we got to you through one of your mentees. What are the challenges that mentors face in being able to raise people after them?
Well, it's something that you really have to have a burden for making other people succeed. You see, it's not easy. Most people would rather spend the time making themselves succeed. But the greatest investment for me that you can make is in other people. That's right. You get to a point where people say to you, look at all the people. In fact, one of the opening page, I think, of the book Business Angel as a Missionary, and the reason it was written was that Ben Murray Bruce came to visit me once and said, look, my friend, why do you hate money? I said, what do you mean? I don't hate money. How can you say that? I'm the ultimate capitalist, free enterprise. I've been called evangelist of free enterprise. How can you say I hate money? I said, no. Let me point to several people who you have made multi-millionaires, but you are still very modest, your life is still very simple and all of that. Why do you hate money? I said, no. My real success is seeing the success of other people. And so that was why I wrote the book Business Angel, and going through many of those companies that were founded as a result of my trying to mentor other people, So you've got to have a passion for it. You've got to want to take yourself away and not look at your own bank account, but look at the success of others. In the end, I think that you won't be poor. If other people succeed because of you, you really won't be poor.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll go on a short break and we'll come back, but Prof will be here to tell us the role that every sector needs to play, including you yourself as an aspiring entrepreneur, the role you need to play to be able to move from the level you are to the level that you want to be. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. As an entrepreneur in Africa and across many of the developing nations of the world, you should listen to what Professor Pat Utomi, who's a professor of economics and also a professor of entrepreneurship and has taught entrepreneurship over the years, we tell you now. I urge you to take your pen, take your paper, take it down. If you're that person just graduating from school, if you're that young person in school who is thinking of what next to do, or if you're stuck in a job and you don't know what to do, listen to what Prof has to say. Over to you, sir.
Okay, well, one of the most important things for venturing is knowledge. You cannot give what you do not have. So seek knowledge, expose yourself widely. Try and develop what a guy called Rob Young calls a T-shaped mind. A T-shaped mind is a deep understanding of a subject matter and significant understanding of many other things. Combination of this deep knowledge and this broad understanding of things enables you to be creative. Always think gaps, dissatisfaction gaps as I call them. In life, human beings always desire a higher state of well-being than they currently have. That's why Maslow talks about insatiable needs of man. Once you meet one particular need state, you the next stage. So there are dissatisfaction gaps always. What are the dissatisfaction gaps near you? Because the problem is that most times people are looking for some esoteric venture somewhere, whereas around them are all kinds of problems that they can find solutions for. See these satisfaction gaps of people around you. Find creative ways of solving them that you can extract value from having provided that solution. And you're an entrepreneur. Start small. Make it scalable. But dream, and dream big. If you can dream it, you can make it happen.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time. We are very grateful. We indeed appreciate the opportunity for having you on this program. It's been a lifelong dream, and it has happened today. Thank you very much. I'm sure that our viewers have learned a lot.